So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 41, I think? 41? Is that it? Yeah, 41. The flood is real. I never remember the numbers. Every single time I make a thumbnail or a video title, I have to open up like my studio, go to contents, and like scroll down to the most recent one and check to see what number was it. Like those numbers do not stay in my head. So, Vishanti, you were looking lovely with a wonderful feeder ear cuff.
I'm glad I remembered, even though it was very, last minute. So, you're welcome, I guess?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm sure the audience does too. Which reminds me, DM Ian Nasir sells Bad Copper Wing, which, I don't know if you get that one. That's a super deep cut. Says, so you finally admit it. Godzilla, Screonk. And so we'll take a drink for our first Godzilla super chat. In case you guys don't know, Ian Nasir sells Bad Copper is basically the earliest bit of writing that we have.
One of the oldest one-star Yelp reviews.
Yeah, and it's like basically the oldest name that we're aware of. Like the first name we're ever aware of in the historical record is some guy who apparently sold crappy quality copper, and some guy in cuneiform in Sumerian was like, "This guy sucks." And
this guy sucks. His copper's crap. Don't buy from him.
And that's from like 4,500 years ago. We still have that one-star Yelp review.
Imagine being immortalized in stone or clay because you're such a bad business person.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to us thousands of years later. Hey, you know what? It's sort of like, you, sir, are by far the worst pirate I've ever heard of. Ah, but you have heard of me. And it's
but
like,
you have heard of me.
Yeah. I mean, true, there is that. I doubt that anyone will remember me in 4,500 years. So, Also, sorry I didn't have my color correct on for Pete here. Turkey Sloth for $5 says, is AIG or ICR the bigger shipment of frozen AIG? It's a bag of so it's eggplants. So I'm gonna go for.
I'm sorry, the membership.
We'll get to that in a second. So, I'm gonna go with AIG for two big reasons. One, ICR does not tend to false copyright claim videos. That's a pretty big deal, right? Two, ICR was pro-vax during the pandemic, whereas AIG was anti-vax. And you know what? As many problems as I have with ICR, that's especially given how right-leaning creationism is overall, and how much flack they took from their own fans and still stuck with it like, no, you should go get yourself a vaccine. Because, I mean, look, one of the things that I always talk about is that creationism on its own is not that dangerous of a thing, right? Like, if you think the Earth is 6,000 years old, on its own, that belief is probably not going to have a huge impact on your life or anyone else's. But what it does, it comes with a likelihood to accept more and more pseudoscience. And then you can get into things that are dangerous, like anti-vax or anti-mask, or, I don't know, Shavambu, which, if you don't know what that is, feel free to Google it. I'm not going to tell you. Or don't Google it. I actually don't recommend that you Google it. So, yeah. And so ICR were on the right side of that one, and I really appreciate it. And by the right side, I mean the side that was saving lives, not costing lives.
The correct side.
Yeah. So, unironic props to them on that one. I have a lot to criticize with them, but I have given them unironic praise before, and that's one of the things that I will say that they did a good job. Now, Kent Hoban's shampoo bottle geek, which is great.
Amazing!
Has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Then went to Mary Ann the Night Owl, Tyler West, Lady Moonweb, Gregory Nitsky, and The Fallen from Heaven. So let's take a few drinks for that. Wait, are we already... No, we already missed the drink counter because for some reason, my drink counter program doesn't update with the hotkey that I set unless I go to the like edit this hotkey and then close out of it, right? So I go to edit and it references the right text file and it has the right hotkey, but if I don't hit edit, it won't work. So I have to edit and close out. I don't actually change anything, but anyway, here's 5 drinks. So 1.
And while he's doing
2.
that, don't forget to send your pelagic tunicates. Remember that was
Sessile.
canonized this week, so
3.
don't forget. He said it at
No,
least 2 or 3 times.
it's definitely not true. 4.
Yeah. From the heart, the mouth speaks, and he spoke it, so,
And
so
5.
let it be spoken, let it be done.
Just because it's in the Bible doesn't make it true.
Wrong!
Yeah. What? You know what? Wake me up when you become a biblical literalist.
Counterpoint.
Oh, fair. As the Spacefaring Homo erectus review says, for $4.99, AIG is a bag of that Sumerian copper salesman's copper molded into quite gratuitous shapes. I'll take a drink for that, too. Okay. And then, let's see. Regios also gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to E.G., Need B, Rye, Kenan, and that, yep, and Cookies Riot. Thank you very much. We'll take 5 more for that. Goodness.
I would have read that as Nita B.
I bounced that one around in my head too, and I was like, I don't know. Please correct me.
Which one of us is closer? Or maybe we're both wrong. I don't know.
4.
Last night, while he's counting on Paulogia live stream, it was absolutely hysterical to me to see some of this audience there because Paul didn't know what to do with the display
names?
name jokes. He got to answers in Yahwist and was like,
"What's happening?" Tell him to watch the show more.
Right? Maybe, see, we gotta get him on here. I know it's a little bit early for like a toast-to-toast vibe, but come on.
Yeah. DM Ian Nasir sells bad copper wing for $10 says, welcome head out, just dropping in to spread the truth, TM. Ian Nasir will disrespect your messenger and keep your money in enemy territory no matter how poor the quality of the copper he sent you. There you go. Good to know. That guy sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine people dunking on you 4,000 years after you died. Like.
And people who don't give a crap about your copper. I could not possibly care less how bad Ian Nasir's copper is. That's not where I'm getting my copper. Oh, all right.
Oh my god.
So, guys, we're gonna get into this pretty quick. But I do want to give a little bit of behind the scenes thing right now. We are scheduled for a Kent with Bent on Tuesday.
Circumstances allowing.
Not sure that that's going to happen. Bent is currently not here. He is under medical supervision and on a significant amount of very strong painkillers. So I am hoping that he will be back today. He might not be back for a month for all I know. So, yeah. If you're a thoughts and prayers kind of guy, feel free to remember Ben in all of that, or Beethoven, no relation. Yeah, if you're not, then, I mean, I don't know. He's got a Patreon. You could go support it for like $1 and send him well wishes. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. Even if you then just leave after sending him like $1. Right? So, I say that because, like, I don't know how many other, like, really public-facing ways there are to leave him a message that he'll actually see. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that I just want to let you guys know, I'll repeat it again towards the end, that I don't know exactly what's going to be happening with that. I might just change the name, continue on with the same stream, just without Bent, maybe asking another guest to take his place for a bit. Yeah. So, it's been a weird few days over here at Casa Dino. Weirder than just that, but like, yeah, I want to keep you guys as informed without giving away, you know, anything that isn't mine to talk about, right? You know, trying to hedge that line between letting you guys know what's up and, you know, not talk about things that I shouldn't. B2022, aka Job, that most common of Chinese names. Yes, very, very common Chinese names. Job. For 20 pounds. I was going to say euros. That's pounds, obviously. Last 9 months, we've been getting a little tetrapod, which apparently you need to keep carrying. Oh, growing a little tetrapod. We've been growing a little tetrapod. Okay. Which apparently you need to keep caring for once it leaves the mother. So it won't be able to support the channel as much over the next few months. So to make up for it, well, thank you very much. And hey, congratulations. Yeah. And oh my goodness, B2022 just gifted 20 Dapper Dinosaur memberships.
Also, before that, Tea Time Tea joined at the tetrapod level. So
that's true. Yeah, Tea Time Tea. Thank you very much. And also, B2022, aka Job, the most common of Chinese names, has just gifted 20 memberships. They went to Intellectual, Ectropy, Rostina Keller, Kip. No, not Kip Davis. That's him just chatting. Come on, Kip.
Combo breaker.
Sal. I'm hoping I'm getting that even approximately right. JMCA does lifts. Jason Hyatt. Oh goodness, they just got away from me. Where'd they go?
Lorraine Drosophila.
Yeah, okay. Peninsitch, Hollyhock, Alex Hood, Judia or Hoodia. You know what? I don't know what language you're coming from. That's the trouble with J. J is a stupid letter. Tom Boogan. Let's see. Lesbie Andrea, Yo Adrienne, Charles Starbuck, Kevin Webster, Colin Dietrich, Golden Mandalore, Aunt Jer, Grey Wolf Cole. Got away from me again. Grey Wolf Coder. Rogston. Is that it? Did I get them all? I think I got them all. Let's do 20 drinks. Here we go. You might want to say something while I do this. I don't know. Keep them entertained.
Okay, well, I'll do that. I'll just welcome to the stream, folks. We're
give them the drinking rules.
Okay. So the drinking rules, as I remember them off the top of my head, having watched a million Dapper Dinosaur streams, and definitely paying attention every single time all the way through. Anytime the speaker says something that is real dumb and we got to cool our brains off, we take a drink. Which is a lot. Anytime they say something that's factually correct, that they didn't just quote from somebody else, like it came out of their own brain, then we take a drink. Anytime they treat Lucy as the only example of, like, hominid fossils, we drink because that's an ad hominem.
Ad hominem.
An hominid. Hominin.
How many drinks am I at?
I don't know. I'm not counting. I
think I'm at 5th.
That information. Anyway, anytime the creationist quotes a text of any sort, and we go check the text, and it says the opposite of what they said, and or debunks them directly, we call that a Trojan source, and we take a drink. Anytime they violate Godwin's law and mention the NSDAP, don't look them up unless you have your VPN on. We will take a drink because, oh my god, stop mentioning those folks.
Right? Like, there are valid reasons to bring up the NSDAP, but there aren't many, and it doesn't come up very often.
Not during a stream about, like, science. Like, seriously, guys, stay on topic and focus. Okay, anytime someone super chats and includes one of the 3, what are they called? Kaiju emojis, Mothra, King Ghidorah, or Godzilla, they take a drink. Anytime Dapper, there's audio in the background of a kaiju, then we take a drink. So that's not something the chat can affect directly, but when you hear it. And anytime someone super chats something to the effect that AIG are bag of dicks, because they get way too abusive with the copyright claim system. Did I miss any?
Predictions. You didn't do predictions.
Oh, anytime Dapper, I predict the next thing that's going to be said, and it happens, then we take a drink, because yay, prescience.
Where it's not obvious, right? Like, if he's like, oh, okay, now we're going to read, like, Genesis 7:14, and, like, I'll bet he's going to read Genesis 7:14. Yeah, that doesn't count, because that's obvious. Okay, I think I got the right number of drinks. I'm sorry if I didn't. Us the Spacefaring Homo Erectus Ryu says, for $4.99, 32 drinks. We haven't even started the creationist video yet. Yeah, this is a pretty heavy one. Savage Answers in Yahweh's Cobra for $2 says, Ken Hopen is nearly as honest as Ian Nasir. Oof. Oof, man.
Yikes.
April Van Ryn for 2 beaver bucks says, just want to hear you pronounce my name wrong. There you go. Look, I'm telling you, just send me a pronunciation and I'll do better. Or at least I'll be able to do better. Too Young to Feel Sold for $5.69. Nice. says, "We love Bent. Here's to a speedy recovery to the handsomest tutu wearing person I know." Yes. I will hold him to the tutu thing. He does owe us a tutu when he's back, which again, hopefully is just this Tuesday, right? Like, we don't know that it's not going to be that. It just couldn't be some other time. He will be wearing a tutu. So, yeah. Okay, so
16 minutes in and we still haven't started. Woo!
Well, that's, people have been being very generous. So here we go.
Super chatting. And
Pete Greer is going to be telling us about how he was just getting done telling us how humans probably hunted dinosaurs to extinction after the flood because, of course. And also, Juliana Delicato, there we go. I can read. Welcome to the channel memberships at the tetrapod level. Thank you very much. That's very generous of you. I really appreciate it. By the way, we have 32 new members right now. Go to your Discord, go to settings, go to connections, add the YouTube account that you have the membership with, and it will automatically drop you into my supporter server, whether you paid for the membership yourself or not. Now, when your membership expires, if you don't renew it, there will be I think it's like a 2-week grace period where you can stay in the server, but then it will kick you from the server. Not ban you, just remove you from it until you once again have an account that is linked to either a Patreon that's giving me money or a membership. So, there you go. Anyway, oh, and by the way, we're not doing a Power Rangers watch party after this because Bent is a requirement for those. So, I'm sorry, I know that the next 4 episodes of Power Rangers include 3 of the best episodes out there, but that'll have to be for another time.
It's a possibility. I wasn't there, believe it or not. I wasn't there to see it, but that's just an idea I have, okay?
Fun fact, you don't have to be there to say things that are true about the past. Yeah.
So 13 through 15. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh.
All right, so now this is not really a point about the science or anything. This is just like a presentation thing. When you have a block of text like this, and you have PowerPoint going, it behooves you to put the text onto slides that you can go through in the PowerPoint. Because then if someone, say, misses a word or two that you're saying, they can read it, or even if they don't, they can have it both visually and auditorily being reinforced just for learning purposes. I feel like this is just like using PowerPoint 101.
Do I get to roast you for quoting text and not providing the slides in your videos?
No. Because I have subtitles.
I'm going to do that.
I have subtitles. Plus, yeah. Yeah, you can turn on the subtitles. They're great.
Yeah, but they don't always get it correct.
Oh, they're fine. Oh, you know what? I think we might need to take a quick break and bring on someone else. What do you think? You want to bring on another person?
Yeah. Special guest star? Go.
Special guest star? Guys, hold on a second. We're going to bring on a special guest star. I know it's a little weird, a little awkward. This is a weird episode. It's a weird week. But we're going to be right back. we are back, and we have another special guest. This is, in fact, Dr. Kip Davis. He's here. Let's see. Oh, I have my set a little bit off-center. That's okay. We fixed it. Let's see. While I was gone, April Van Ryan says Ryan is pronounced Ryan, like the river. Godzilla. We'll take a drink for the Godzilla. And Strawberry Vane for $5 says, don't let me donate too much. I'm getting a tattoo very soon, and those cost money. Also, AIG is an arc full of ass. You know what? We'll take a drink for that, too.
Good times.
Kip, how you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
We can't hear
We
him
can't
now.
hear
Crap.
Goodness. Everybody,
I love technology.
give Kip flack for not being able to use Discord. Because that's some serious
Maybe
boomer
don't
energy
do
right
that.
there. No, do it. Do it.
I'm trying to keep him here, not like chase him off.
He'll be fine. Oh, I can hear him now. I just heard him say something about...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so Kip...
I'm wondering something totally messed up with my audio.
No, you
I'm
sound
wondering
fine.
if that has something to do with
It sounds great.
the connection.
The connection is a little iffy. You did robot just a little bit there. It's not too bad.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for my I was unable, for whatever reason, I'm unable to connect to my hard connection today. I don't know why.
That's weird.
So
Well,
it is weird.
let me tell you who this guy is, right? So this is Pete Greer, who is mostly just a pastor in Payson, Arizona, which, by the way, lovely place. It's got lakes, pine trees, it's up in the mountains, lots of nice camping in the area. Wonderful place to go. I highly recommend it if you're in, like, if you want to see the non-sweltering desert side of Arizona, right? Because everyone thinks of, like, okay, Arizona is full of cacti and, like, coyotes and rattlesnakes. But Payson is full of pine trees and coyotes and rattlesnakes. So there you go.
Yep.
Caliban for $2, and the first super chat on the channel says, Dapper got my supercharged cherry. I think that means super chat cherry. I'm glad to have helped pop that particular cherry for you there, Caliban.
Maybe it's also supercharged. You don't know.
It could be, yeah. All right, so this guy, he's basically a pastor there, but he also runs his own little Young Earth Creationist ministry. Like, it's a local kind of thing, right? Like, they send out local speakers and whatnot. And I look at him because I'm interested in what people in the pews are hearing. Because when I talk about Young Earth Creationists or Young Earth Creationism, it's mostly like what they pass off as their technical work, which is really very technical, right? But it's still not like the level of the people in the pews that like what they're getting, right? This is like, you know, they have like data tables and whatnot. And so every once in a while, I like to remind myself what people in the creationist churches are hearing. Like, what's the level of education they're getting? Well, miseducation. So anyway, yeah, if you have anything to say at any point, please jump in. And I'm going to pause this whenever anyone jumps in or whenever I feel like I need to jump in. And let's see. Unnamed birthday professor, Euromonger, for 69 sex. Wow. That is a nice number of sex. Yeah, that's not only a lot, but it's a very nice number of sex. Says, at this rate, we'll never get any Pete. Also, AIG, or a bag of Deeks. Take a drink. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, he didn't say he wasn't ever going to send the flood. He's never going to send the flood and destroy all flesh.
I have never heard anyone object to the story of Noah's flood because there have been subsequent floods. Has anyone else heard anyone make?
I've heard people making light of local floods, saying, "Well, you know, he didn't say he would never send any floods, just not a planet-wide flood to kill everything."
Right. It's just weird
Which
because
I'm sure is not landing very well for people in New York City right now.
Well, yeah. But throughout this, he's given these, like, see, this isn't a problem with the flood, but they're all things that I'm like, who's saying that this is a problem with the flood in the first place? Who cares? Like, this is, people's reasons for not believing the flood aren't things like, well, I don't know, I don't see why rainbows couldn't have existed before. Yeah, no one cares. Or like, yeah, but there have been floods since. Yet that's not anyone's serious objection to the historicity of Noah's flood. Wayne Rossi, who's been a member for 6 months and at the Amnio level, says, shout out to Dr. Kill with a Godzilla emoji, so we'll take a drink for that. All right, here we go.
Never another worldwide flood.
Oh, sorry. Oh, good. Is that whiskey?
Yeah. Hell yeah, he's taking a drink.
Is it Canadian whiskey?
It's Canada's most successful export.
Maple syrup?
Crown Royal.
Oh, okay.
Just drink maple syrup straight out of the glass.
Yeah.
I love that Montreal literally has a strategic maple syrup reserve. That's one of my favorite things ever.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
like
so cool. Just in case.
I watched a documentary once about the maple syrup cartel.
It's a real thing. As to spacefaring Homo erectus Ryu, there we go. For $4.99 says, see, but all those floods aren't as devastating as Noah's flood. Sure think Nolans and Venice and
Nolans.
Nolans and Venice and so on are happy to hear that. Sarcasm. Yeah. And New York now. So that's fun.
So this is another sad cartoon. Looking at the beautiful rainbow, and the kid says, "My
He's
Christian college."
self-aware.
Yeah. I love how Pete thinks the Dan Letha cartoons are actually like a good way to argue for creationism. Because in case you guys don't know, Dan Letha is the guy who does all of these AIG cartoons. Look at that beautiful rainbow. It's a promise from God that he'll never, Genesis 9:8. Okay, so that's just like, here's the reference for this. Again, flood the entire earth as he did in Noah's day. My Christian college professor said that Noah's flood didn't cover the entire earth. He told you it was just a localized flood. That's what he said. That's not even a joke. That's just a conversation. Dan, I'm speaking to the cartoonist here. Dan, punchlines. There has to be some kind of a subversion up. There has to be a conclusion. You can't just put down a hypothetical conversation. It's not a joke. It's one of Dan Letha. Look, Dan Letha actually has
I forgot a drinking rule. If they tell a joke that doesn't land.
Oh, yeah.
Or
this is going to count.
They tell us about a conversation that definitely happened in real life. It wasn't just a conversation with a shampoo bottle.
And then everyone clapped. Yeah, okay, we'll take a drink for that. By the way, I don't know if you can see the drink counter right now, Kit, but we're on 37. So if you're drinking just whiskey, you should be sparing with how big your gulps of whiskey are.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
Professor said Noah's Ark flood didn't cover the entire earth. He told you it was just a localized flood. That's what he said.
okay, good. He's just saving the last panel. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Can I say something about the rainbow?
Sure.
It's super annoying when everyone translates this as a rainbow, because it's not a rainbow, it's just a bow. And there's all sorts of neat ancient Near Eastern implications about Yahweh connecting the bow to his covenant to never flood the earth again. But you miss it if you're, because this is like it's a war weapon, right?
And also, so he believed that God promised to never again send a local flood. Okay, I guess that is technically a punchline because they're in a flood. Neat. Now you could also just go with, since this is probably like, if there's a kernel of truth to the Noah's flood story, which is a pretty big if already, right? But if there is, then it's probably a legendary extrapolation on a devastating flood that basically wiped out an entire settled area that was probably the people who were so devastated, like entire known world, which at the time probably wouldn't have extended much more than like a few dozen miles in any direction, right? Because we're talking about like an early agrarian society, they're not traveling much. So for them, a quote-unquote worldwide flood is just flooding all that they know about. And you could interpret that as being the whole inhabited world, which is also what happens in the previously referenced, in this series, Deucalion flood from ancient Greece, where it's explicitly that the inhabited world is flooded, but the high mountains aren't, right? Because it floods out all the valleys. And in Greece, where most of the mountains are just bare, rocky, slopes where you're not going to be growing anything, if you flood out all the valleys, that gets rid of all the civilization. All the people are gone. So similarly, at the very least, if you want to maintain some kind of literalism, right? Or some kind of this is a true story, you could just go with, well, God promised not to flood out all of the inhabited world again. which is probably not what's happening in this cartoon, and so you're fine, even if it's not a global flood in the sense of even the highest mountains in the entire Earth are covered. Like, I'm just putting out, like, there are options that you can take while being a Christian who's trying to take the Bible as historically as you can that don't lead you to have logical contradictions and deny all of science. You've got some options. Now, do I think they're the most likely readings in terms of, like, historical accuracy or what the author intended or what we can actually glean from the text itself? No, but at least they're not going to lead you to denying outright reality all the time. So I don't know.
So he believes that God promised to never again send a localized flood. We've seen this.
This is just such bad hermeneutics.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, creationists don't even have consistent hermeneutics, right? Because they'll say things like, "Oh, the Genesis 1 account, right, is a literal historical account of the creation of the world, and Genesis 7 is starting a literal historical account of Noah's flood." And then you'll say, "Okay, so what is the literal meaning of the floodgates of heaven that God opens up to let the rain in?" Now, having with us someone who knows exactly what the literal meaning of that is, Dr. Davis, would you do the honors and to tell us what the literal meaning is behind the floodgates of heaven that are mentioned in Genesis in both the creation account in Genesis 1 as well as the flood account?
So, sorry, it's hard to hear you, but if I heard correctly, this idea, the idea being presented here that this great solid dome that covers that goes over top of the Earth that you can see, that keeps all the water out, because within the original creation, this was what God did, is he separated all the waters in order to make dry land and pushed all these chaotic waters, these primordial waters outside, and created this physical barrier to keep them out there. But every now and then there's openings, doors or windows to heaven, which are opened and closed by the gods, and which produce precipitation, rain and snow, falling down onto the earth. So that's what's going on there.
By the way, if you're having trouble hearing me, you might want to right-click where you see my profile picture, and there should be a little slider for volume. If you slide that all the way to the right or more to the right, it might make me a little bit easier to hear.
I'm pretty sure it's my connection.
So I can't help too much with that, unfortunately.
It's really weird. You can't do anything about that, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's some more Pete.
Out of floods. And we've had a lot of that in the summer, as a matter of fact, starting in Houston and going through the summer. Well,
what is this? I mean, Dan Letha isn't exactly my favorite artist, but this is a big downgrade from the last thing we saw.
No kidding.
My goodness.
This looks like it was drawn by like an 11-year-old.
Yeah, and then like hastily colored in with watercolors for some reason. With a blue beard and hair and mustache for Noah, I guess? Was Noah the original Bluebeard? Maybe.
There's Noah. There's the rainbow. He's happy. God's made a covenant with him. He's not going to do that
Noah
again. Doesn't
look happy. He looks like he's in pain.
Yeah, he looks like he's either in pain or just very, very nervous. Like, this is the exact, like, that, that gritted tooth emoji, like the grimace emoji. That's what he looks like. I mean, look at his eyebrow. They're all, like, up and his eyes are big and like, Argh. Yeah, okay, that's Noah being happy.
Did he make these himself?
So the previous thing he didn't. Those are Dan Letha, which is like.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say he works for AIG, but he does pretty much all of their cartoons, and he also does cartoons for other like other evangelical, very very literalist type publications.
Yeah. Okay. Looks familiar.
Well, from looking at Noah's life after this, that Noah didn't live a perfect life after this. There's a few problems.
Yeah, he got drunk too much.
And
Pause.
you know,
real
he was
quick.
a man.
Go for it.
John in the chat was asking about the bitch-made timer, and they knew who Sal is and was asking the context, and they did get an answer in chat, but I just love bringing this up because I helped make that timer, and I really just love dunking on Sal for being bitch-made. Sal Cordova found out about a series that Dapper was doing called Sal's Pal, about John Sanford, and because John Sanford is his homeboy, he got really excited, having no self-awareness at all that this was going to be dunking on John Sanford's terrible science and lies and dishonesty.
Because of course it
incredible
is.
Stupidity. Pick one.
Because it's my channel.
And Sal got really excited that it was Sal's Pal, because I guess he's just that egotistic. And he goes, yeah, I'll totally be there. I can't wait to see this. And when the series premiered, he was nowhere to be seen, but then he got real butt mad that Sal was butt mad that Dapper was calling out John Sanford's fraudulent information, and did a response video, which is funny because you can't respond to something that you've never seen. 2 response videos, and that timer represents the amount of time that has passed since the premiere of the first Sal's Pal video until the time that Sal decides to end the timer by watching them.
Yeah, and making me vaguely aware that he has done so. In case you're wondering, the first response video was just him telling me what a big brain John Sanford is, to which my response is just like, okay, great, so I guess he's lying then.
Cool, so he's lying.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Which was basically the point of my third video, was like, this guy has to be lying. And then his second response was basically just natural selection doesn't work, which I responded to by just watching it and bringing on population geneticist Zach B. Hancock, who has in fact a PhD in evolutionary biology and specializes in like population genetics, like the mathematical field of population genetics, complete with all the statistics and all that wonderful mathematical rigor. And so that was actually pretty fun if you want to go back and check that out. Anyway.
That timer stops running the minute Sal watches any of those videos.
Yeah. Although, I'll be honest, if it gets much past like a year, I might take it out. Yeah.
If we could throw a party on a year anniversary and then just...
Ooh, yeah, the 1 year special.
1 year special.
Let's see. Meldeborn for $2 says, I've seen better art and writing in chick tracts. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Although, you know what?
Yeah.
Vishanti, if you could link in the chat the mock chick tract that's like a Cthulhu tract that's like, hey, what you should do is worship the old gods so that you're eaten first when they arise from the oceans when the stars are right. I know.
Oh, it's by Fred Van Lint. Oh my god.
Yeah, you sent it to
Fred
me.
Van Lint. I did, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Savage,
I was going to say he's a comic book guy that I follow, and he's a good guy.
Savage Answers in Yahweh's Cobra for $5 says, don't forget flinging schoolyard insults to everybody, including his co-religionists. Yeah, that happens a lot, too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in favor of transferring the name No True Scotsman to No True Christian.
I second that.
Yeah, it happens way more often than people calling into question the Scottishness of individuals, people calling into question the Christianness of individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, there is such a thing as a fake Christian. Look up crypto Jews. They were fake Christians. People who don't do the things that you like while still actually being Christians, those aren't fake Christians. That's not the same thing.
I have crypto Jewish ancestry.
There you go. Vishanti has fake Christian ancestors. I mean...
F Spain.
Yeah,
all my homies hate Spain.
There you go.
Followed after God, he still had his problems, which shows that none of us are perfect. We know that from Scripture, but he survived the flood by being faithful to God. We can survive life's trials and tribulations by being faithful to God. He will keep us through even the worst trial and tribulation.
By the way, once again, guys, lapel mics. You can get one for like $15 on Amazon. If you're ever doing something like this, just get a lapel mic.
Well, there's a lot of interest out there. Has the ark been found?
No.
No.
If he
it
says
hasn't.
Okay, if he does anything other than just going through a list of the hoaxes that have happened and saying nope, 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 and then concluding that no one has, I will take 5 drinks. If, however, that is what he does...
Okay, if he brings up Ron Wyatt, I will go downstairs and get a bottle of wine and begin to imbibe it.
Okay, but what if he brings up Bob Wyatt and says, "Yeah, but this guy's nonsense. You shouldn't believe this guy." Like, what if he critically? Okay, guys.
Okay.
I was in high school when that book by Ron Wyatt was.
Ron Wyatt,
and my buddy working
Ron.
at a Christian bookstore at the time. And so picked this up, and I'll admit it, when I was in high school, I was impressed by this.
Well, yeah, you were a dumb kid.
Until I was a dumb kid.
Have you ever been young and stupid? I mean, it happened to me.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I lost it.
Oh, sorry. My favorite one is, I found the blood of Jesus. It only had X chromosomes, and it only had 1 set of chromosomes or something. And it's like, I totally had it tested. It's like, do you have the results? What lab did this? No. Oh, okay. Cool story, buddy. Yeah.
If you only had 23 of 46 chromosomes, the chances of them being just the Y are...
Oh yeah, it was like...
not good.
Yeah, like he had 24 or something. It was like
or
he had an X and a Y. And it was just like he had 1 full set of chromosomes with the X, and he also had like a Y tossed in there, because I guess God had to make a Y, because otherwise he wouldn't have been a male, I guess. But then...
I think
you have
to give credit where credit's due. Like, this was super creative.
Oh yeah, sure.
In the first place. Inventing this is, I think this is what impressed me the most, was coming up with this idea that the ark had to be right underneath where Jesus was crucified, so that the blood could actually come down.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant.
The mercy seat, yeah.
And on the mercy seat. I was like, good, like, very...
I mean, symbolically noteworthy, sure. Yeah. It's just...
good continuity, I guess.
Just not a thing that happened, especially since we all know the Ark of the Covenant is actually in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's definitely...
and it's radioactive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're not supposed to approach it more than once a year. So
of course.
That's actually like a radio, that's like a RADCON control to like limit stay time around the radioactive ark. You know, radiation is fine as long as there's enough shielding, and apparently that cloth that hung over the Holy of Holies, that's plenty. I did turn Dr. Kip's volume up a little bit on my side, so if that's still insufficient, let me know.
So there have been
they're
many
saying
claims.
it's like about like half to 2/3 of our volume, but whatever.
I'm gonna turn you down a little bit. Actually, you're a little bit louder than last time.
Yay!
By people saying they found the ark, and a lot of Christian groups have said this. So here's a quick view of the most plausible one I've seen and read about.
Oh, good. This is his best. This is the best we've got here, guys. This is the most plausible one. If it's Ron Wyatt, I will take the 5 drinks.
There's all kinds of them out there. The Institute of Creation Research has sent several expeditions to Mount Ararat in the region looking for the ark.
You know what's a fun thing? When you send out expeditions to find a thing that actually exists, you tend to find it. When you send out expeditions to find things like Bigfoots, or dinosaurs in the Congo, or the Ark, you get this weird pattern where, like, no matter how many expeditions go out there, it just doesn't show up. It's just so weird. Oh, by the way, when people sent expeditions into the Congo to find gorillas, which were thought to basically be a cryptid at the time, although that term hadn't been invented, they found gorillas. Isn't that weird? Yeah. Crazy.
Here's one that looks like it could have been a big ark.
Literally just rocks. I'm taking a drink. Is that Ron Wyatt's location? All right, here comes the 5 drinks.
So blown out. It's like way overexposed. I can't even see it. Like,
okay, someone who, for some reason, is calling themselves Dapper D secretly love pelagic, I guess, tunicate, spelled incorrectly, for €2, and says, "My name says it all. with a bunch of kaiju emojis, so we'll take a drink for that.
You know I approve.
Of course you do, because you're one of those weird sympathizers for the pelagic tunicates, and I don't get it.
You know what? I love all tunicates, and that includes pelagic ones. So you just need to stop being
That's
so
gross.
discriminatory.
No, look, pelagic tunicates need to learn their place, which is attached to the substrate.
I have it on good authority that they're also very dapper dressers. So.
Well, that's great, but that's not all it takes. You know who else were dapper dressers? Yeah, the Godwin's Law people that we drink for. Just saying.
Dapper broke Godwin's Law? You guys! You guys!
There's an extra drink for us right there. Louis Vuitton or something. Or, I don't remember who it was. Who was it that made the universe?
Hugo Boss.
Hugo Boss, there you go. Good designer. Anyway, well, here's 5 drinks for it being... I mean, I'm not going to say they weren't well-dressed. Look, when you're that evil, you have to be well-dressed or no one's going to take you seriously.
Okay.
That's why all the politicians wear suits. It's because if you're not well-dressed, no one's going to take you seriously when you're that evil. It's true. All right, here's the 5 drinks for this being Ron Wyatt. Here we go. 1. 2.
I'm waiting to drink until he mentions Ron Wyatt.
I'm thirsty. 4.
Okay.
And 5. Well, so we're going to delay today's break a little bit because we had to have that little intermission to bring Dr. Kip in. So we'll probably take a break at like, I don't know, 10, 15 past.
Yeah. Rested on Mount Ararat. It has some things with it that you would call them artifacts. Those are supposed to be beams in the side.
Those are supposed to be beams, but they're just rocks, dude. It's just a bunch of rocks. It's just rocks. Goodness. Hey, look at this rock. You think it's the Ark? No, I think it's a rock, damn it. What? But it's got vertical bits.
We call artifacts. Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, did you... Okay, so here's one thing, right? These mountains, right, in like what's now Turkey, Anatolia, if you're big into like ancient history, right? These are volcanic. And a lot of it's volcanic basalts and granites and things like that. And there's this thing that volcanic rock likes to do, which is to form columnar formations, right? So what happens is, because the heat, you know, the cooling starts off near the top, right? And so as the rock contracts, it tends to form these fractures right at the top, which are similar to basically the fractures that you see on, like, if you ever like looked at mud that's like drying in the sun, and it gets that little crackled appearance with the different like little tiles, but that tends to propagate all the way through because the whole thing is molten rock all the way down, right? So as this cooling and condensing happens, the cracks that are already there propagate vertically through the rock, which means if the rock isn't then tilted significantly, as it starts to wear away, it tends to wear away so that these columns start to break off. And what you're left with is a rock face with columnar rocks attached to it, which I guess you can call beams, but they're not supporting anything. They're not made of wood. And the fact that volcanoes exist doesn't mean anything for Noah's Ark.
David B. 22585 in the chat just won. He said, it's clearly a transitional form between rocks and arcs.
Evolution proved. And also, Zenmore42 has just sent a $1 super chat that is blank. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And Alex Marco says, are they vaguely hexagonal? We can't tell. Yeah, it's true that basaltic columnar...
like Giant's Causeway in Ireland?
Yeah, it's Ireland. Yep. Yeah, basalt that tends to form columnar formations does tend to be hexagonal, which is a common thing overall. If there's enough variation in the makeup of the rock, it can change exactly the shapes because different areas will contract at different rates, which can get you different shapes.
Yeah.
The reason it's hexagonal is because that's one of those space-filling shapes, and so when all of your volcanic rock tends to be a similar composition, it all tends to have about the same rate of contraction, which means you get space-filling shapes out of it. It's all to do with math and physics.
Anonymous Pi glanced out their front window at the organ pipes of Mount Wellington and was like, columnar dolerite.
Yeah, there you go. No, that's an arc. That's the other arc. That's the Utnapishtim. Yeah, that's the Utnapishtim arc, actually. This is the Noah's Ark. Yep. Dr. Kip,
Well,
could you...
that's how the
could you
kangaroos
confirm?
got to the southern hemisphere,
confirm.
y'all.
Yeah, Utnapishtim landed in Australia with the kangaroos. He was carrying the Australian fauna. Noah was actually carrying the other stuff. But because Utnapishtim was a heathen, he doesn't get a mention in the Bible. That's what's up.
Oh, so this was this is the same flood then.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Utnapishtim just went.
Yeah, he went the other way. Mm-hmm. He went south.
Well, that's what happened to like Sumerian and Akkadian civilization then.
Yeah, well, plus, I mean, if you think about it, once Gilgamesh has the flower of immortality, he's got to swim all the way from Australia back to Sumer.
Oh,
that's like a really big trip. Oh, of course, some sea snake is going to go and eat it, right? There's a lot of sea snakes between here and there, right? Yeah, so like this all checks out. This is the new headcanon that I've got for the whole thing. All right, here we go.
That are fossilized in the rock. And
that's a bunch of nothing, but okay. That's what am I even looking at? There's people staring at a rock, and then there's just horizontal banding in columns of something.
It's the DNA of the rock because it used to be alive.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's the DNA of the quote-unquote wood that they found, I guess.
They used a technology where they can like X-ray the ground to see if there was any compartments down there and stuff. And they found some stuff that they thought could have been there.
Oh my goodness, in a bunch of volcanic rock, you found voids? What? Oh my goodness, it's not like volcanic rock ever has gas come out of solution, forming a relative void of low density inside of the otherwise high density structure. That's never happened to any volcanic rock anywhere.
I mean, it's not like bread does that either, with
seriously
gases and all that.
I'm just taking a drink for like, how could there be voids in a volcanic rock formation? My goodness, this really is like, did you ever hear of geology? Is geology a thing that you're even aware of?
No, they're just lying atheists.
And I consider myself to
Holy
be really...
rusted metal, Batman! What? This metal, it's rusty and full of holes!
Ah, yes, the best Batman movie.
It is so good.
Look, how many other movies give you molded plastic bat nipples? None. It's none as far as I know.
And the reincarnation of Frank Gorshin in Jim Carrey's Riddler. So good.
All right, here we go.
When they say that kind of stuff, I just gotta dismiss it.
That is not a scan from Ron Wyatt. That's drogestones being hung off of an arc.
This is something that I'm going to show you.
These are drogestones, and once he tells us about it, I'll go more over it. So we.
Okay. Now, because I've never seen this before, but in ancient vessels they use that for ballast to keep it steady in the waters. When the waters got rough, those rocks held it steady.
So this is a real thing that you can do with ships, and people have done historically, right? Where you find a big rock, you drill a hole through it, which, yes, ancient people could drill circular holes through rocks. They didn't need alien heat lasers. They had things like copper and bronze and later iron drills. It's fine. Anyway, and so you tie a rope through it, and then you hang that from your ship. And the idea is that as a wave comes by and crashes against one side of the ship, it has to overcome not just the inherent buoyancy and bounce of your ship, but also has to do extra work to move rocks over if it's going to try and flip you over. And because it lowers your center of mass lower below your hull, it also means that you're more likely to right after you've been tipped. So basically, it makes you less likely to capsize. Now, here's what I'll say. Nothing in the Bible says that Noah's Ark had drogestones. Also, nothing says it didn't. But further...
That's just headcanon.
Just because you find some rocks that have a hole drilled in them, that's not evidence of drogestones. And at best, that's what Ron Wyatt has. At best, he's got some rocks with holes drilled in them. And you know what? Okay, that's great. You get a boat? No, you just got some rocks with holes, maybe? And that's a big maybe, because everything Ron Wyatt says he's found, there's basically an 80% chance that he just didn't even find the most basic version of it. Yeah.
It looks like he's questioning his life choices by crashing the stream.
Right? One of my favorite Ron Wyatts is like, look at this circular coral. I'll bet that's a chariot wheel. It's like, yeah, okay, sure thing, Ron. Yep, that's definitely what that is. Ugh. At least that's a thing. Like, he has some pictures where he's like, "This."
Ron Wyatt videos are definitely the ones where he bursts into tears.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ron. What a strange fellow Ron Wyatt is.
Yeah, right.
He just has some of the nuttiest things to say. And also, I love that he spent time trying to find stuff in Jesus' tomb by hanging out at the Garden Tomb, which wasn't even built when Jesus was alive. Like, it wasn't built until well after. And it's like, you know, the New Testament describes Jesus' location of execution as like right outside the city gates of Jerusalem. And like, yeah, okay, it's outside the later wall built around Alia Capitolina, but it wasn't built around the old city of Jerusalem. That gate's way further in. And it's just like, everything about the Garden Tomb is like, no, this is not the burial place of Jesus. Sorry, the date's wrong, the location is wrong, nothing. Now, I'm not saying that the you know, where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is where it is, but at least it's at a location that's outside the gates of the old
city walls.
Yeah, like it's where it could be, right? It's at least a viable option for the location of Jesus' burial.
Yeah.
Is it? I have no idea. I don't know how to assess that. But at least it's an option. You can say when you're there, this is maybe where Jesus was buried. When you're at the Garden Tomb, here's what you can say. This is definitely not where Jesus was buried. And those are different things.
Fun fact. Can I say a fun fact?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's located right next to the École Biblique, which is the Dominican French School of Archaeology in Jerusalem, which is where that's where Pere Roland de Vaux and Maurice Baillet and Dominic Barthélemy and many of the original scholars who did the work on the Dead Sea Scrolls were.
Oh, cool.
Ooh.
That is cool. And I'll say this.
It's a good.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's a good place to go and stay when you're visiting Jerusalem and working on the texts.
Nice. And I'll say this about the grounds of the Garden Tomb. They're very well maintained and very nice looking. It looks like a very relaxing place to hang out.
They do a great job.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just definitely not where Jesus was buried. Which, hey, as far as a park goes, it's very nice. But that's it. It's a park near a tomb that wasn't Jesus's. Anyway, for $2, Savage Answers in Yahwist Cobra says, but Ron Wyatt found the bloof of Jesus. I think he meant blood, but that's okay. Yeah, no.
They're trying to make fun of a typo that I had last night.
Uh-oh.
And I just find it very unfunny, so I know they're trying to make it happen, but okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Then they found things like this in the area that they found.
Oh, there it is.
Yep. You know what that looks more like? That looks like an ancient stele, which it's probably worn away for the most part. And yeah, that's a decorative thing that someone put up here. And the big reason is, right, because it's flattened on at least one side, and there looks like there's inscriptions. And that's the kind of thing that you did in the ancient world when you wanted to like put up a signpost, basically. Like you had something to announce to people publicly. You put up a rock, you flatten one side, you put some decorative element at the top. This probably wasn't some like, you know, hyper wealthy emperor of a multi-city empire, probably just some local noble who didn't have the money to get a cool frieze put in. So you erect a rock, you carve something into it, put a hole in there for decoration, and then you go.
Yeah, and it's like ancient billboards.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we have many examples of these from throughout the ancient Near East. I'm sure Dr. Kip Davis here can affirm that, yeah, we've got these stelae all over the place. And in multiple civilizations. Yeah, so like, okay, Ron Wyatt found a stele. Yay!
That formation that I just showed you. But the most recent articles say that even though the formation looks like it could have been, all the scientific expeditions, what they have to conclude is just a natural geologic formation.
No, they don't, though. They could conclude that there's a wooden structure there, and no one would bat an eye, right? If there were evidence of a wooden structure, people would report it. Look, we just had a report of, like, a 400,000-year-old wooden structure made by non-Homo sapien hominids somewhere in Africa. I don't remember where, right? Like, the scientific community is not shy about super ancient wooden structures, right? Like, we just literally a report of carpenters who weren't even in your species. I can't say our. I'm a Ceratosaurus, whatever. Who aren't even in Homo sapiens, right? No one is gonna be like, oh no, we found wood on Mount Ararat. What will we do? No, they would report on it because everyone would think that's cool. And yeah, also, if there were actually physical evidence for the flood, pretty sure that would just change the scholarly consensus on, I guess there was a flood. And not just in, like, history or biblical studies, but in geology, paleontology, all of those things. Because remember, Charles Lyell, the guy who basically created modern geology, that guy believed in a flood his entire life. He just realized that it couldn't have been a, catastrophic global flood that left behind a record because he couldn't find any evidence for it.
Wasn't Charles Lyell also a lifelong Christian?
Yes, as far as I know, there are no even intimations that he ever abandoned his religion at any point in his life. And even his ideas about, like, we need to free the science from Moses was we need to stop relying on literalist interpretations of Genesis and, the rest of the, I guess you would probably say the Pentateuch, I don't know. And instead just go by the data that we find in the ground. But he was his whole life hoping to find physical evidence of Noah's flood, and he never stopped believing in Noah's flood. He just came to the conclusion that it must have been so tranquil that it just didn't leave any impact on the geology of the Earth. Now, personally, I find that to be a little bit incredible in the literal sense of that word. But hey, you know what? I'm not Charles Lyell, and I'm not really here to criticize him. I'm just here to point out that the beginnings of geology would have been absolutely fine with evidence of a global flood. They just failed to find it. And also, biblical scholarship isn't exactly something that started with the assumption that the Bible was just, a bunch of nonsense and we should find ways to disprove it. The idea that, like, Abraham didn't exist as being, like, a widely accepted consensus in, like, scholarship, that's not that old. People were like, yeah, there was probably literally.
Especially.
Yeah. Like, this is... I'm just going to take a drink for this, like, weird conspiracy theory stuff, because that's the only place it can go, right? There must be a conspiracy to make sure that the scholars don't believe in the Bible. No, there isn't. There just isn't good data to support...
Proof.
Yeah, there just isn't good data to support your particular interpretation.
And if you look, I'm not going to go back to that slide. I meant to show you that the drainage coming down right next to it, it has some of the similar looking sheer walls and stuff.
I have no idea what he means by that. What drainage?
So, more artifacts. They actually found brass rings.
Okay.
What?
Hey,
brass
rings
do exist during the Bronze Age or Iron Age.
Also, wasn't metal rings the most common form of currency way back in the day around that area?
I would expect so, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, if I remember correctly, the way that a lot of currency worked is that people just would make spirals of metal, and then you would be able to break or cut off certain weights to pay for things. So yeah, finding some circular brass bits are not surprising. And even if these aren't monetary, you know how useful a metal ring is? Whether you're on a ship or not? Like, you can use it to tie together animals, you can use it to... Basically, anytime you need to stick one thing onto another thing, and what you have at your disposals are, like, sticks, rope, and metal rings, the metal rings are a really big part of that. Like... metal rings are not an unexpected find. Like, this is like, oh man, did you know they found arrowheads? Well, yeah, that's not surprising. Those are all over the world. Anywhere people have lived, you can find arrowheads. It's not that weird.
In that area, in the rocks, these are nails.
Yeah, never used those in human history.
I'm taking a drink for apparently... Pete Greer just thinks that no one has ever inhabited this area after Noah, and so the only reason we could find nails is that they're from Noah's Ark. Like, what? My God, there are nails on Mount Ararat. Yeah. Yep, that's not surprising. Did you find an actual boat, though, my guy? Because you didn't show one of those.
Nope.
That's the greatest thing, is like, well, we found things that could have been part of a boat. Yeah, but they also could have not been part of a boat. Did you find anything that supports the boat hypothesis while counter-indicating the alternate hypotheses that maybe people just lived there? Right? Because that's the other option, right? Maybe there were just people who lived there, and that's why you find things like a stele, or a bunch of nails, or a ring of metal. Very ordinary humans lived here things.
Did they even tell us what the text on the stele said?
No. Although I actually happen to know that it actually does reference Noah, because it's actually been put there by people who believed in Noah. Like, you know, like 4th and 5th century Christians. And then later, when Muslims moved in, they were like, oh, hey, cool. Let's keep that around. Yeah. Yeah, I have actually looked into this site before. It's
great. Okay.
It's rather uninteresting. Now, I will say that the government of Turkey did seem to cooperate with Ron Wyatt, but it seems like it was mostly to help boost tourism to the area, because they were like, hey, maybe a bunch of people who like the Noah story, which is like, you know, like 3 billion people, might become interested in coming to our country and spending money here if they think this is where the Noah's Ark landed. That sounds cool. Because, you know, if there's one thing that I trust the Turkish government for, it's factual accuracy about religious history. We're all about that.
Stairs in Hagia Sophia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's artifacts and that thing. That's the best evidence we have of Noah's Ark being there. But
if that's the best you've got with that there, Pete, it's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's basically nothing.
Most of the scientific expeditions say we cannot. There's not enough there for us to say we found Noah's Ark, and we're not going to do it.
You know what? We drink when they get something right. He definitely got that right. There is not enough there to say that you found Noah's Ark, buddy. That is very true. Goodness.
Good job, guy.
I love that I'm going to lead off with my best foot. Nails on a mountain. There you go, guys. There are nails on a Turkish mountain. Noah's flood confirmed. Oh, okay.
All right, man. Sure.
They'd love to do it, but realistically, even if you say it's Noah's Ark, are the scoffers going to be won to Christ because of that?
Yeah, actually, if you could, or I don't know about Christ, right? But like, at least accepting the historical plausibility of Genesis, if you could find an actual verifiably ancient boat on top of a mountain that was verifiably not just built there, and it matched the dimensions described in the Bible, yeah, I would start taking the Noah's flood story pretty damn seriously. I don't know if I count as a scoffer. I mean, I certainly don't believe in the historical, literally true nature of Noah's flood, so I guess by his definition, that probably makes me a scoffer. I don't know. But, like, yeah, it would definitely go a long way towards convincing me, oh, hey, I guess this whole thing is probably true. Or at least certain parts of it. Now, I don't think that believing in the literal historicity of Genesis has to make you a Christian, because I can think of a few other religions that would also be okay with that. But at least it would get you into, like, the broadly Abrahamic camp. Like, go be a Druze, I guess. I don't know. You can't just go be a Druze.
Right.
That's not allowed.
That's true. You cannot.
Yeah, go be Baha'i. There you go. Go be Baha'i.
Yeah, you could be Baha'i.
Yeah. Go hang out with Rainn Wilson. He's Baha'i.
Mm-hmm.
Literally the only famous Baha'i I know of. That's the only reason I always pick him. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are others. I don't know. Maybe he's outspoken about it. I don't know.
They're never going to believe it anyway because they don't have the belief.
My goodness, lapel mic, man. This ridiculous camera audio is just absolutely terrible. And this is me having somewhat improved this. It used to be much, much worse. Like, yeah. This is not the raw audio that we're getting. This is me having boosted the audio and having removed a bunch of the background sound and, like, tried to get, like, the what do you call it? The different frequencies to be in, like, a relatively normal range as opposed to, like, just hugging the high end. Like, yeah, no, this was terrible when I first got it.
To believe these things in the Bible. So let's get to the scientific evidence for those who like to see how the scientific evidence is interpreted.
You would have thought that he would lead with the science.
Especially since everyone in his audience, I guarantee you, is familiar with the biblical story, right? I can guarantee you that all of them have read it.
You would think.
We're at about 1:15. We're going to take a quick break, guys, before we get into the mountains of scientific evidence, because I'm sure that the scientific evidence is just going to overwhelm us. And then we are, all three of us, going to become fundamentalist, evangelical, literalist Christians in the next few minutes here.
Again.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Hey, former Young Earth creationist here. So yeah, again, we're going to revert to our former
I'm gonna
religion.
revert.
Yep.
Yeah.
To our former religious stance because of the overwhelming scientific evidence of Pete Gruder. Now, before we head out, Ask the Spacefaring Homo erectus review for $4.99 says 108 people in the stream and 13 likes so far. Yeah. Oh wait, I'm seeing 77. Victory after all, I suppose. Well, it does seem a very gloomy business. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm seeing way more than 13 likes. Maybe I just haven't been checking. Anyway, we're going to be out of here. In the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of Beethoven, who, again, if you're a thoughts and prayers kind of a person, he could probably use that. If you're not, even if you are, right? Maybe see if you can send him a get better well wishes on wherever you can contact him. His Patreon is linked in the description, which I said, hey, give him $1 for a month and send him a message oh, hey, get better. So that way when he checks it, he can see that. Or don't. I mean, whatever. Just, he's not having a great time right now. So here comes the intermission. Okay, we are back, and I have good news from the break. Bent Hoven is in fact back home. He's
Woo!
still on some pretty heavy medication, so he's feeling pretty good right now. And currently, there is nothing seriously wrong, so that's good news. Still leaves some questions, but that's okay. It's better than bad news. So yeah, he's got some new medication to take care of some of the symptoms that he was having, and he's pretty out of it on pain medication right now. But he is safe, and he is home, and those are the most important things. So I appreciate any of the well wishes from you guys. I'm sure he would still appreciate any well-wishing that you had left for him. We're still not going to be doing Power Rangers because he is going to probably be sleeping off medication for a while. So, but yeah, Bent is back and is not in any obvious immediate danger. So that's a plus. So I've been worried about that. Also, as you guys know, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through fans supporting the channel via things like Patreon, via channel memberships, subscriptions, whatnot, right? So if that's something you want to do, check in the description. There's a link to the Patreon. You can join the channel below this. There's also an Amazon wish list if that's one of your things. Yeah, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because, you know, we've already taken up enough time with things like updates on Bent and trying to bring Dr. Davis in and whatnot. So we're just going to keep on. If you want to support, there's plenty of ways. If you don't, that's great too. Just like the video, share it. There you go. All right, let's continue on with the scientific evidence. Now, this is going to be it. This is what's going to convince the entire world to convert to Pete's version of Christianity. Because remember, it's not just enough that you become a Christian of some stripe. You have to be one of the ones that actually believes the way Pete does. Because that's important for, I don't know, some reason. Savage Answers and Yahweh's Cobra gifted 5 memberships. It went to Shay Dragon, Kenneth, Helen R., Shauna Davis, Robert Saylor, and is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah, that is 5. There you go. I can count to 5. I know how to do math. Here we go. 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here we go. I'm going to have to crack open this next beer soon. This is going to be beer number 3.
We have to first say that theologically, we have to reject it. Because if you have the old earth view, then death, pain, killing, disease, thorns, struggle, suffering, and extinction happened before Adam and Eve. If Noah's flood happened, these all happened at one time in the judgment of God after Adam.
This still feels like a theological justification and not a scientific justification. Like, I don't remember at what point, like, the curse of sin was part of the scientific explanation for, like, the history of life on Earth. I don't know. Maybe it's in there somewhere in some paper I just haven't read. I don't know. Like, maybe there's something like that's been published in like PLOS One or something where it's like a long-term study on the effects of like moral turpitude on the evolution of the vertebrate pain response. Maybe that's in there. I don't know. I'm not aware of that paper, is all I'm saying.
1,600 years or so afterwards.
Dude, face the camera if you're not going to have a lapel mic. Holy crap. I should call this guy, right? I can get his phone number, and I'm like, Pete, I've watched some of your videos. I'm not here to criticize your videos or your points. I'm just here to give you some production advice. You're not going to get a lapel mic for like $15 on Amazon. At least face the microphone and speak clearly. Ugh.
So, theologically, to stay consistent with what Genesis says, you have to, you know, the young earth is what you want to see.
Right, what about scientifically?
Agree.
Okay, here we go.
If there was a worldwide flood, we would expect to see billions of dead things buried in rock layers, laid down by water all over the earth. So,
thanks, Ken Ham, who apparently has his hand right up Pete's rectum all the way to his mouth so that he can puppet Pete's mouth to say his exact words. Okay, so here's a few things with that. One, we find way too many fossils for them all to have been alive during the course of the 1 year of Noah's flood, right? Because Noah's flood is supposed to have lasted about a year and some change, right? You can say, oh, well, the 40 days and nights, yeah, that's just the rain. When you actually add up all the time that it talks about Noah being in the ark until he actually can get off of the ark, it's about a year. Cool. So we have a year long for all these organisms to have been alive. Okay. Now, I'll find it. This is a question for my panel members. Have you all heard of a belemnite?
Maybe.
Okay.
A what?
A
Sorry, I missed it.
A belemnite.
A belemnite?
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
So this is a group of cephalopods, right? That's the group that includes like squids and nautiluses and whatnot. Now, the interesting thing about belemnites is that they retained an internal shell, kind of like a cuttlefish, right? Like if you've ever had a parrot and you gave it a cuttle bone, that's actually the shell of a cuttlefish, which is an internal shell. In fact, if you ever deboned a squid, so that you took out that weird, almost looks like plastic clear bit from the inside of a mantle of a squid.
Pen.
Yeah, the pen. That's also a shell, but it's not mineralized, right? So squid actually have a shell. It's just not mineralized. It's not hardened. So belemnites were relatively small creatures. They're only like 8 or 9 centimeters in length when they're alive. And inside, they have a tiny little shell that's kind of bullet-shaped, right? It's kind of long, it's cylindrical, it tapers more strongly at one end than the other. It's kind of blunt at the other end. It's like a bullet shape. There are places in North America where the ground is made of belemnite shells. And if just those belemnites in certain parts of North America were all alive at the same time, the entire Earth would be like a meter thick deep in tiny cephalopods. We've got way too many fossils for a year worth of flood. And that's just the belemnites. If you look at organic limestone, which is a large portion of the limestone, like, the cliffs of Dover, the famous white cliffs of Dover, those are the skeletons of seagoing plankton. That solid skeleton right there.
That's crazy, eh?
What if they were all alive at once?
God.
It would be a meters deep sludge of solid algae across the entire world. And
see,
you
Dapper,
also
what happened?
okay, here we go.
When God gathered all the land to one place, he just took all the cuttlefish and made them, go to that one place in North America. Of
course. And Strawberry Vein for $2 says, just a quick reminder that trans rights. Yes. Trans rights.
Yes.
So, and that's just two things, right? Like we can keep, I could keep going, right? There are way too many fossils to have all been alive at once, right? Just with those two groups, just the algae that made up the White Cliffs of Dover and various other, bio or organic chalk deposits or limestone deposits. Sorry, not all organic limestone is chalk, whatever. And just those belemnites that we can find in certain parts of North America. We're talking a solid mass covering the entire globe, meters thick, of just living things. How? You can't even get light to penetrate through that. So what are the bottom algae feeding on? They're photosynthetic. It doesn't work.
Well, they are now.
Well, sure, but here's another problem. Not all of our fossils were laid down by water. Have either of you heard of the fighting dinosaurs fossils, where you have a velociraptor locked in combat with a protoceratops and it was fossilized that way?
Neat.
Well, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But here's another really cool.
That they didn't just get frozen in that position by the
flood.
flash.
No, in fact,
flash flood.
We happen to know that it was a landslide, or a sand slide, basically, because that entire rock formation, which is currently out in the deserts of Mongolia, which, by the way, are some of the oldest deserts in the world. They've basically been deserts since the Cretaceous. That is an Aeolian sand deposit, which means it's wind-borne sand. We can tell because you can check the angles of the preserved dunes, and sand dunes underwater have a different angle that they can maintain than sand dunes in the air because the fluid properties of the water and the air are different. So the angles that sand dunes can maintain are different. So you can just check. And we have lots of fossils in sand that was deposited not by water, but by wind. And further, if you ever have that fancy pink Himalayan salt that actually is just salt with a funny color and has no particular health effects or anything, but people like it anyway?
Or Himalayan salt lamps.
Yeah, Himalayan salt lamps. Those are cool. You know why it's pink? Fossilized algae. That's an evaporite. That's an ancient sea that evaporated, leaving behind the actual bodies of the algae who stained the salt that was left behind. And there are meters thick salt deposits. You can look for pictures online of people walking in the salt mines in the Himalayas, and they are encased in a solid wall of pink salt that goes all around them. All from an evaporated ancient sea that was started evaporating after the Indian subcontinent collided with the Eurasian plate and cut that sea off from any outlets that could let it mix back in with the ocean.
I would like to say that if a worldwide flood happened, you would actually not expect to see lots of dead things buried in rock layers. Because the Earth would be plasma.
Well, yeah. I mean, this all requires us to ignore the heat problem, which, so yeah. But you know what? That's enough about the billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the Earth.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, are we talking about science? Because the Earth would have been a protostar.
Yeah. Yeah, all of the stuff that I'm saying is ignoring the heat problem. Because, that's a big one.
Creationists do it, why can't we?
True.
We've now gone over the Earth and we've looked, and guess what we found? We've found billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the Earth.
Technically true, just doesn't help. So I'm taking a drink.
So, a young Earth creationist is going, yes, the worldwide flood. And the old Earth people are saying, no, a whole bunch of local floods happen to lay down the same.
Okay.
They do not say a whole bunch of global floods.
Well, I think he said local. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And even if he didn't say global, I'm going to say that he meant local, because that's usually the argument they make. I'm going to be nice. So there's a few things. One is, yes, a lot of fossils that we find do seem to be from various floods. Why don't we say that they're from global floods, right? Like, why not? Well, here's why not, right? Because scientists can tell if some rock layer could have been deposited by a flood or not. You can do things like check how much energy was present in the system that deposited a sediment layer. Sorry, Dr. Davis, I know we're probably going a bit outside your wheelhouse on this one right now.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. My guess is that your studies on like ancient Jewish literature didn't include a lot of stuff like geomorphology.
I didn't even take geology in school.
Hey, if it helps, I didn't either. This is all me learning from actual geologists by just asking questions like, "Hey, what's this?"
Look, I didn't take a lot of this in college either. My degree's in music, so the only science I had was astronomy.
Hey, I took astronomy in college.
8 A's in both.
I did too. Anyway, so we can tell how much energy was in a system. So, for instance, if you have heavy grading in a system, so that lower down in the layer you get bigger sediments, we can tell that probably happened relatively quickly, which also tends to mean it happened relatively in a relatively high energy system, right? Because for all that sediment to be deposited at a similar time requires a lot more energy than for all of it to trickle in slowly. We can tell things like, hey, was this crossbedding caused by dune accumulations? Was it caused by tides? Was it caused by something annual that happened over the course of years, like varves in a lake? Versus like daily, like tidal crossbedding in certain marine sandstones, things like that. We can tell, right? And the thing is, creationists would like to say that all of these different kinds of rocks could be laid down by a flood. To which I say, well, that's great. Where are your sedimentation experiments where you got a sedimentation tank and you tested various conditions to show that in high energy conditions we could get rocks that are otherwise consistent with like low energy near shore tidal crossbedding? Where are those experiments? You know where they are? Nowhere.
Would it be nowhere?
I'm
Yeah.
guessing they don't do them.
Yeah, no, they don't, which is weird because they'll pay like $7 million to have a wooden structure erected in the rough shape of Noah's Ark with Noah's biblically accurate industrial scale HVAC system to keep everyone inside alive. But they won't pay, what, a few $100,000 for a big tank? No? That's not worth it? Okay. I mean, weird priorities.
I want to know where Noah got HVAC certified.
Oh, back then you didn't have to be certified. You could just do it.
That sounds unsafe, but okay.
Well, I mean, it was the ancient world. A lot of stuff was unsafe. You think they had OSHA? OSHA didn't pop up until the 20th century.
OSHA sounds like a Babylonian god's name.
A little bit, yeah. But that's heathenry.
If there is a god anywhere in that region that sounds vaguely like OSHA, I am going to laugh very, very hard.
All right, everybody, go find a god somewhere in the ancient Near East whose name was at least somewhat like OSHA.
OSHA, Asha, Isha, something like that.
Oh, come on, Isha's a little bit too front and close of a vowel. It's got to at least be a back vowel.
That look the same. Complete coincidence. You just really, if you look at the intellectual side of this, you got to give away a lot more to leave it older than you do the younger.
Okay, whatever, mumble, but you got to give away a lot more for the old Earth and the young Earth? No. Nothing indicates this. But okay, here's more about the fossil record, everybody. This will be fun.
I don't believe you have to give away anything intellectually to leave the young Earth.
Goodness, mumble.
Creationist's best friend is the fossil record?
Okay.
No, it's not actually, but okay.
I hate that. Okay, first of all, few things. I know what this picture is, even though it's blown out, right? It's a Stenopterygius ichthyosaur that has an embryo emerging from its reproductive tract area. For some reason, it's horizontally compressed like crazy, and it's also not the original version. It's the version promulgated by Answers in Genesis, because for some reason, they tone corrected it so that the background blocks are blue rather than the more original dark color of reddish. I don't know why they did that. It's not like it's inherently dishonest or something, but anyway, these are from a limestone deposit in Germany, where a lot of these Stenopterygius ichthyosaurs are known from. So that's the background.
Fish, for those of you who are like me and don't speak.
Excuse me, these things are more closely related to lizards than they are to fish.
Okay.
So take that.
No.
Also, I make fun of Kent pretty frequently for calling this a fish, so please don't call it a fish, because then I'll have to make fun of you for the same thing. It's an ichthyosaur, right? It's a fish lizard. That's what the name means.
Hey.
Happened that were preserved quickly. This is a fish that's giving birth.
So a few things. I know I've said it before. We're taking a drink because this is really dumb. Hey, guys, what until very recently was basically the worldwide top cause of death among adult human females?
Childbirth.
Childbirth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, has it ever occurred that an animal might die in childbirth? Yeah, no, that's a thing that happens. Now, if an animal were to die in childbirth and the infant had not fully emerged from the reproductive tract, could that animal die with an infant only partially through the reproductive tract? Yeah. Now, if that animal were in some area where there was, say, a conducive environment to fossilization, could it then be fossilized in that condition? Yeah. Now, this is in limestone. We happen to know that, at least according to real sedimentation experiments, as well as observations of actual sedimentation of limey muck, which is what turns into limestone, that basically you get like a few centimeters every 1,000 years or so, and that preservation like this generally requires some kind of a slump, but still the vertical extent of this limestone, which in the case of this particular formation is, which I believe is at least a few dozen meters, yeah, that requires many millennia. And when I say a few centimeters per millennium, that's like at the top levels, right? We're talking like ideal limestone deposit sort of circumstances. So, yet nothing about this indicates that this was a rapid flood that washed over a bunch of limestone, which, again, impossible, and covered this thing while it was giving birth. But here's another thing. It doesn't even have to have died in childbirth or while giving birth at all for this to happen, because there's this phenomenon called coffin birth. Now, this is a little gross, so you might want to tune out for a few minutes. I don't know. Up to you. How squeamish are you? When things decay, they build up gases. And these gases tend to first build up inside internal cavities in the body, causing bloating. The reproductive tract is an internal cavity which can build up gases. If there is something blocking the exit of the reproductive tract, like, say, an embryo, it can build up behind that and then tend to push the embryo out because of the buildup of gas pressure. This is a well-known phenomenon in many animals, humans included. So we don't even know that this ichthyosaur was giving birth when she died. We just know that she was pregnant when she died. That's it. This could just be an example of, like, 100 million year ago, well, more than that, like 200 million year ago, coffin birth. We just don't know. So, no, Noah's flood is not the only way to account for this. It's not even a good way to account for it. Strawberry Vein for $5 says, I'm just going to take 10 drinks for creationists thinking that creatures have to be alive to be fossilized. Yeah, you'll see that frequently. How could this have fossilized this way unless it was covered by mud while alive? I don't know, maybe it died that way and then just got fossilized the normal way. Maybe that's it. Couldn't be.
And it was fossilized giving birth. We have other fossils of fish eating fish, and they were fossilized just quickly and catastrophic.
Yes, nothing has ever choked to death, Pete. I'm just going to take a drink. Yep. And I also want to point out that these are almost always actinopterygian fish that are being eaten. Now, in case you're not up with the lingo of actinopterygy, which is, a little obscure, right? These are the ray fin fish. Now, if you've ever been fishing, most of the fish you've caught have been ray fin fish, unless you've been fishing for, like, lungfish in South America or something, which you probably haven't been. One of the things that you might remember is that they have these dorsal fins that are full of spines, such that if you rub them the wrong way, you can get cut. I've been cut by a fish. It's a thing that happens. They have these spines to protect them from predators who might try to chomp on them. Because when you chomp on a fish and you get a mouthful of spines, that's rather unpleasant. Now, some fish try to take on fish that are too big for them, chomp onto the spines, cannot dislodge the prey item, and then they both drown. Because fish can drown if they can't move water across their gills effectively, which you might not be able to if you're either inside someone's mouth or your entire mouth is stuffed with a fish that's too big. Seems like a problem. Also, if you've got a big old fish stuck in your mouth, you're not going to be able to eat anything else, so eventually you're going to starve. So, yeah. This is just a thing that happens. It happens today. As to spacefaring Homo erectus Ryu, 1 second, for 49 says, okay, so regarding OSHA God, there's an Asher and an Urash, but not something like Ushar that would be reasonably close as far as my Google Food can tell. There you go.
I didn't want it to end with the Reich, or I would have said, like, Asher and stuff. So.
Oh. That's as close as to Ryu can find. Sorry, what were you going to go off?
Okay, let me see if I can get that train of back.
Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, does this mean that Jonah had spines?
Yes. Let's just go with yes.
That's for those of you who aren't, like, pinky in the brain following my train of thought there. We just read Jonah over Yom Kippur, which is why it's on my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's famously about a fish that swallowed a person.
By we, don't you mean you specifically?
Jews.
Yeah, but also you specifically as an individual.
And I specifically, yes. I actually did read part of it at my shul. Anyway, famously about a fish that was big, but also ate something that might have been too big for it, and then later puked him back up. So maybe Jonah had fins with spinies.
I'm going with yes. Yep.
Tropically. And here's something people have explained away, that Adam and Eve.
I want to point out, if your
Why
slide...
do we
Oh, sorry.
fossil thorns.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
I want to point out, if your slide about the scientific evidence for the flood starts with a Bible on one of its, on its top half, you might not actually be talking about the scientific evidence for the flood. Because here's the thing, right? The Bible isn't scientific evidence. Even if it were literally true, and we could find scientific evidence that it is true, the scientific evidence that we found wouldn't be the Bible. Right? Because for it to be scientific evidence, it has to be some objective thing that you find out in the world that you can measure and test, make predictions about, things like that, right? The Bible is a text. No text is scientific evidence. Texts can record and report scientific evidence when they are in actual scientific journals and are recording the actual observations and experimental results that have been done. But even then, the actual experiments and results, those are the evidence. The text is not, per se. So at no point is the Bible, yes, P-E-R-S-A-Y. One word. One word. Thanks, Armando Calvo, who apparently made it through boot camp, which is still surprising to me. Yeah, I checked his channel. He has a post-boot camp video out. Armando Calvo.
I am shocked.
Me too. I was certain he was going to wash out. He's got a video in a new location that looks like a barracks room. And yeah, he's got his army cap on.
Oh my god.
He's shaved because, he couldn't keep that scraggly beard in the army. Yeah. So, hey, you know what? Good for him. I didn't think he'd had it in him.
Broke him.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he'll be a less crazy man after this. Who knows?
The history of man didn't start until after millions of years when God breathed the breath of life into the two hominids that he wanted to become Adam and Eve. But way back in the fossil record, we have thorns. The Bible clearly says that as a result of Adam's sin, the thorns came into the world. So the thorns came second.
You see, what that is it's a disconfirmation. It's a disconfirmation of the biblical story being literally true, not evidence in favor of the literal historicity of Noah's Ark. That's what you're getting wrong there, Pete. When we find fossils of thorns predating our fossils of humans by a lot, no matter how you scale the time scale, that means the Bible's wrong if you interpret it to say that that's when thorns occurred. Now, you could just interpret it to say that, well, maybe thorns didn't occur around the people in the garden, and that now that they were leaving the garden, they would have to deal with the wild plants because the garden itself indicates some level of cultivation. And therefore, maybe God was like the gardener. He was weeding out all the thorns. I don't know. I'm just trying to make up stuff that you could use to be less wrong. I don't know.
I got nothing.
But yeah, when you find thorns predating humans, that's an indication that at least your interpretation of the Bible is wrong. At the very least. It's not an indication that the science is wrong. Because whenever physical reality and your interpretation of the Bible are at odds, guess who wins?
Well, if you're a fundamentalist, the Bible.
Yeah, well, for everyone else, including science, it's the physical.
MasterCard.
Well, it's the physical reality. Savage answers in Yahweh Scoper for $5 says the Bible is scientific because he read the passage repeatedly and still interpreted it as congruent with his pre-existing beliefs. I mean, yeah, that is what it seems to come down to. Also, Savage there it is. Yeah, Savage answers in Yahweh Scoper. I was confused because I thought the same name twice, and I was like, wait, is that right? And it is right. For $2 says, also very surprised Armando made it through basic. Yeah. I would not have... You don't know who Armando Calvo is, do you? Kip, you don't know who Armando Calvo is, do you?
Hello? Sorry,
hello?
What?
Oh, can you hear? Oh, you don't know who this Armando Calvo is, do you?
Oh, wait. Yeah, I've heard that name. That's,
Christ Righteous.
Shoot, he's,
He's the guy that
logicked a
Mhm.
bunch of reviews of his great book. Or books.
Books, but yeah, plural.
God is.
Yeah, that he had checked by the copyright. Don't forget.
Yeah,
Right.
he had it checked by the copyright.
Right, that's how books work. You send them off to the copyright, and they send them back with a little copyright stamp saying, "Yep, you did it."
Peer review.
Yeah, that's. Oh man.
How long did it take you to get your papers back from the copyright, Kip?
From the copywriter.
Yeah. Was it months?
It varies per copywriter.
Oh, okay. Some of them work fast, huh?
You know, some of them work very fast. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Gotta get one of those.
Well, these thorns came millions of years before man was supposed to be on the earth. So one of them's got to be right, and one of them's got to be wrong. You can't say they're both right.
That's true. We'll take a drink.
This is called a polystrate.
One of them's got to be wrong.
Oh my god, the polystrate fossil. Here's the great thing about polystrate fossils. This has not been a good argument since the 1850s when we figured out what these were. The 1850s is when the actual explanation for what you're looking at was published in a book whose title translates roughly to Acadian geology, referencing, like, you know, the Acadian French people who were kicked out of what's now Canada by the British after, you know, they won a war against Napoleon, thereby acquiring the North American French holdings. And these were people who were like, yeah, so we've been living here for a while now, you know, just hanging out, having peaceful relations with all the natives, intermarrying, trading, you know, just doing cool stuff like that. And the British were like, but we would like you to give us a whole bunch of that money and to stop being so nice with the natives. And they were just like, nah, what if we just didn't? And the British were like, okay, you have to get out. Here's a gun. We'll shoot you with it if you don't.
Went?
Louisiana.
Yeah.
That's right, down the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
And Cajun became Cajun.
Yep.
So
interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a fun little, like, oh hey, thanks British people for being just dicks to everyone. Yeah, there's a reason that in the French and Indian War, the French and the Indians weren't the people fighting each other. They were the ones on the same side against the British.
Which is weird that they call it the French and Indian War, because it should be the French, Indian, and British War, but whatever.
Well, the British people refer to it like as if we're just talking about the people we were fighting, right? But the reason those two groups were aligned with each other was because the French actually had really great relations for the most part with Native Americans. They weren't out there conquering them.
We learned that in my podunk-ass school in Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yep. In fact, there's actually now there's at least one First Nation that's a recognized First Nation group in Canada that is actually, their history traces back to settlements that were co-founded by Native groups and French settlers. And their culture is actually a mix of, like, early 18th century French settlers and the natives.
The Métis?
I believe that's it, but I would have to double check. I would have to look it up.
And they're all over the place. Like, it's
cool.
And also, hey,
by the way, I should probably mention, today, is it today? It's, I believe it's today is Truth and Reconciliation Day here in Canada.
All right. Would you like to tell all of our non-Canadian viewers what that is?
So this is new for us. This is a brand new holiday. It's actually a stat holiday too. So this is a recognition of the systematic attempted cultural genocide of the Canadian government through the residential school system.
Yep.
Which was, like, spread all over this country. And the residential schools were funded by the Canadian government as a means to basically anglicize all the natives in the area. And they started in the late 19th century, and there were still residential schools open all over the place into the 1980s. In the town that I live, the residential school didn't actually close down until 1981.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's Well,
and as sorry, I'll just say,
No.
you know, I mean, it's just a huge. It's produced this huge cultural problem, in terms of just not just the relations between the indigenous people and the settlers. You know, the mostly Europeans who live in Canada now, but it's produced all sorts of problems.
Yeah, including a
Anyways.
pretty high body count.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Actual bodies
Yeah.
buried behind
Mhm.
residential schools.
Yeah. But anyway, let's talk really quick about polystrate fossils, which is a little less depressing, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so polystrate fossils are actually called upright fossils in the real scientific literature, for the primary reason that they actually don't go across strata. So people know that strata are different layers in the rocks, right? That's what people really reasonably know about, especially since like stratum is just Latin for like layer. That's what the word literally means. But that's not the only kind of layer in the rock, right? Within strata are what's called laminae. These are layers that are within the layer, basically. So a stratum is a layer that is defined by a single broad depositional environment, right? So in this case, the depositional environment is basically a bog. So in case you guys don't know, what a bog is, definitionally, is it's a wetland where the rate of deposition is higher than the rate of decomposition of organic matter, which is why you get things like bog bodies. Okay, they're basically fossil factories. It's also where most coal and oil in the entire world comes from, is from bogs. Now, in a bog, you can have seasonal or even irregular events that cause various things like small-scale floods, differences in sedimentation, things like that, right? And that's what happens here. There, every once in a while, a flood happens. We can tell it's a local flood because of what I'm going to go over right now, which is that between these laminae, you actually can get what's called paleosols. That's a fossilized soil. Because remember, soil isn't just a bunch of rock, right? It's rock, it's organic matter.
Organic matter.
There's things like worms and roots turning it up and things like that. And you can find those fossilized. So if you look through these layers, at the interface between them, what you would find if you could look closely is actually things like root traces and animal burrows and things like that. Like these are fossilized bits of soil. And soil takes time. If you just have a bunch of sediment wash up somewhere, it's not going to be soil immediately, right? It's just going to be sediment. It takes time for that organic matter to accumulate, for the animals and plants to start churning it up and adding nutrients to it through their various waste products and nitrogen fixation from bacteria. Like all this stuff takes time. And so when you have multiple soil horizons, it cannot have happened in a year because it takes more than a year to establish a good topsoil. So when we have these areas where we can tell it's the same bog deposition the whole way through, but there are these different layers of topsoil, we know that those are separated by at least several years, right? And that's what happens with all of these petrified trees going through multiple layers. Yes, there are multiple layers, but they're laminae within the same stratum that was itself deposited in a bog, and we know that for a fact because of the paleosols. And we have known this since the 1850s. This is not news. And I have yet to hear a creationist address the paleosols. Because you know what you can't...
They don't even know about it.
Oh, they probably don't. But you know what you can't get under a global single flood? Multiple layers of paleosol. Just not going to happen. You're not even going to get one layer of paleosol, never mind multiple ones. And we can actually see different trees in different places vertically where their roots penetrate different layers of the stratum, indicating that that's where they started growing at a different time. And you could say, well, why didn't the trees fall over? Well, there's a few reasons. One, trees can stay upright and dead for a very long time. Two,
Yep.
This was before bacteria that could eat wood existed. Because wood is, the structural component of wood is a protein called lignin, which is very difficult to digest, and only a few fungi and bacteria even today can eat it. And it had only just evolved in the Carboniferous, which is where most of these things are found. It's called the Carboniferous because of all the coal there. Because what's the primary thing coal is made of? Carbon. The Carboniferous is the coal-bearing part of the Earth's geology. So you see how all this connects very nicely. It's almost like the geologists knew what they were talking about when they came up with all this stuff. Weird, right?
Almost.
And so, yeah, this
Go
is...
figure.
this is before lignin-eating bacteria or mushrooms, or well, fungi, had evolved. So there was nothing to eat these trees that would make them fall over sooner. So they would have lasted even longer. So yeah,
Wow.
all just adds up. And we've known most of this. Not the lignin part, that came later. But we've known most of this, again, 1850s.
This is another reason why I really want younger creationists to think about the fact that their theology demands there not being death until the fall. Because Adam was made from the dust or the ground of the earth, which is composed of decaying organic matter along with
Don't think
crushed
about
up
that.
rocks. So
Don't think about that. That organic matter was from things that didn't have nostrils, so they don't count.
okay, sure.
All right,
So a bunch
guys.
of plants died in like 3 days.
Yep. All right.
Rocks
so,
got weathered hyper fast in like 3-4 days. Okay, sure.
So, I mean, it's even more ridiculous that this is something the ancients were able to figure out. That the reason why the writer of Genesis 2 thought that Adam was created from dirt was because they had enough sense to realize that when bodies decompose, that's what they turn into.
So maybe that's where they came from. Yep.
Exactly.
So, guys, we're going to start wrapping up. I'm going to ask my panel if they have anything they want to tell you guys about that you can go check out. So we'll start with Vishanti. Vishanti, you got a video coming out or anything?
Slowly but surely, there are some scripts in the works, and I've got some folks helping me learn how to edit because that's, again, my biggest hang-up. And I'm hoping to get with Fossil Daddy again for another collaboration on L.A. Marzulli and the mummies of aliens they, quote, found. And whenever Kip sends me more voice work, I'll do that too.
Awesome. All right, Kip, what do you got for us?
I'm doing something this week.
Nice.
Which is fun. So, hold on. Whoops. Sorry. Yeah, I am doing a stream with Dr. Joshua Bowen this Thursday evening.
Yeah!
Nice.
At 5:30 Pacific. I think that's 8:30.
If you send me a link to that, I will make sure to add it to the description.
As soon as I've got the link, I will send it to you. But he and I are gonna start reading Hebrew regularly. So if anyone is into that, we're starting this Thursday at 5:30.
Awesome.
I'm pretty excited. So it'll be fun.
All right. So one thing is, Dapper D secretly love Pelagic Tunicate for €2, which is a weird name. I don't know why you would lie like that. Says, I am surprised Armando made it through middle school. Yeah, you know what? That's fair. Actually, I'm not sorry. I guess he must have, because you have to have a GED at least to join the military in the United States.
Yeah.
But also, they can exclude you for being too smart. There's that too. So can the police. I'm like, nah, you're too smart for this job. No. Yeah, there have been lawsuits in the United States about that. And the Supreme Court is like, yeah, no, if you can be too smart to be a cop, it's fine. Okay. That's comforting.
We're like the only civilized nation that doesn't have minimum degree requirements for cops. So
I think it's at least a high school degree requirement, isn't there?
Well, high school degree. I'm talking about higher education.
Yeah.
Most other countries require some sort of university education as well. So.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Probably just a coincidence that our murder rates are higher, but yeah, whatever.
Look, on average, your U.S. cop is more likely to have been the high school bully than the high school nerd by a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take a look at what we got coming up. So on the 3rd, I am still planning for a Kent with Bent, and now that Bent is back, it seems more likely. On Thursday the 5th, I have the second set of the quick facts or whatever AIG calls them, right? Where they just did these 62 fun facts about creationism, and they put it all into one big compiled video, and I was like, all right, sure, let's go through all of them. Just every single one. And I'm doing like 10 or so per video. So yeah, it's going to be like a 6-part series, guys. Like, buckle up. It'll be a while. Then on Saturday, I am probably just doing another one of these shows. So there you go. And I will probably be inviting guests, or at least a guest. So I'll invite Vishanti. If Dr. Kip wants to come along, he can let me know. We can go again. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say hopefully my audio works better next time.
Well, I mean, it didn't work unacceptably well, but yeah, it was a little iffy. So yeah, that's basically a week from today. So that's about as far ahead as I want to look. If you are a member or a patron, I will be doing things for October. There will be an October theme to the videos that I produce next month, by which I mean spooky, because it's spooky month. However, yeah,
werewolf bar mitzvah, spooky, scary. Boys becoming men, men becoming wolves.
This month.
But here's the thing. What that means is, if you're not, you probably won't be seeing my spooky videos until, like, March. So, all of a sudden in March, there's going to be spooky stuff happening, and you're just going to have to deal with that. Volander Gingerson?
I was going to let Kip read that because he's probably a little better at sight reading Nordic.
Yeah, can you... What do you got for us?
Let's see. I would have just said Volander Gingerson.
There you go. We'll go with that.
That's what it looks like.
For $10, says last minute super chat, but AIG is a deposit of polystrate phallicils. Yeah. We'll take a drink for that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope to see all of you on Thursday. Have a safe weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Denny5252, Eleron Teller, Thorhavara, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babby, Monkey They Them, Mrs. Spexinder, The Venerable Bead, Sphincter of Doom, and Star Runner. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.